This is the last counselor webinar for the academic year. We have a couple of other family webinars going on that I'll tell you about as we go through the webinar today. For those of you who are not familiar with MEFA, we are a nonprofit quasi-state authority, self-financing. We do a lot of work across the Commonwealth with families at every aspect of the college enrollment process, from saving and planning for college, helping families through the admissions process, the financial aid process, and of course, right now, helping them in their high school seniors with their award letters from all the colleges they've been accepted to. For those of you who haven't been on the MEFA site lately, this is our new MEFA.org. Please feel free to log in and take a peek. I do want to point out a couple of features before we dive into the details. For those of you who would like to collect PDP points for this webinar, it's worth 1 PDP point. You can log in, sign on to MEFA.org, and click on the For Counselors tab, and you'll see Training and Events. And right here under Training and Events, if you scroll down, you'll see our webinar series. So here is the evidence of learning form that you can fill out for this webinar. And after you've collected 10 PDP points, you can then send them into MEFA for credits. And our whole PDP policy is right here on the website as well. So before we dive into the award letters and how to help families with their award letters, let's talk a little bit, just a reminder about financial aid and how colleges are calculating a family's eligibility for aid. So first they're going to take the cost of attendance, which is what we call the sticker price. So that's going to include the direct costs and the indirect costs. We have a great calculator on our website that I'll demo for you that can help families figure out exactly what they owe the college based on the aid that they have received. Then the college will deduct the family's EFC, or expected family contribution. That is a number that is calculated through filling out the FAFSA form, and at private colleges for their own institutional aid, many of them have families fill out the CSS profile as well. Deducting the EFC from the cost of attendance is the family's financial aid eligibility. What confuses families a lot this time of year is they see their EFC and they think, okay, that's what I have to come up with. But in most cases, that's usually a starting point for families, because many colleges across the country are unable to meet a family's full financial aid eligibility. There are a few colleges that can tell families up front, we'll meet your full financial need, but those are few and far between across the country. So families are a little surprised this time of year when they realize they are possibly going to owe more than their EFC. And of course, financial aid eligibility is going to differ from school to school because of that cost of attendance. So a lot of times when families ask me why their awards are so different, it could be just a matter of one school costs more, so their eligibility is higher, and therefore they're receiving more financial aid. Okay, just 1 second, folks. Having a little technical difficulty here. Okay, So merit-based aid is one item that families should look at when they're comparing award letters. It's one option for colleges to award free gift, is what we call it. It's free money that the students do not have to pay back. So this is one of the best types of financial aid to get. It's typically awarded for academic achievements. There are situations at many schools where particular students might get a merit-based award for their artistic talent or their athletic talents, musical talents, etc. Most of the merit-based aid that's given out nationwide is based on a student's academics. That criteria at each college about who they're going to give their merit awards to can differ greatly. Many colleges have different levels within their own institution for merit-based aid. So it is upon families' responsibility to know at each college they're receiving merit-based aid, what's the renewability criteria? What do they need to do to maintain that scholarship or grant? In many cases, it's a minimum GPA, let's say a 3.0. If that is the case, then the families need to know what will happen if that student does not get that 3.0. In many cases, families will be able to, get an extra semester so the student can get their grades back up. The college may take the scholarship away in full if the student doesn't maintain that GPA. Or also they may just take away a portion of it, a percentage based on their GPA. All three scenarios could happen from school to school, so it's important for the families to know what each merit-based award is reliant upon. Do they need to stay in the same major to keep that merit-based award? These are some of the questions that families should be asking colleges at open house programs and when they're talking to the admissions and financial aid office. Another piece of the financial aid award is based on need, financial need. So this is what we call need-based aid. When families fill out the FAFSA form, that's determining for a college the family's eligibility for federal and state aid. For colleges that do not use the CSS profile, they may also use the FAFSA form to determine their own institutional aid. Colleges that do use the CSS profile form are using that data to determine their own institutional monies. It is a standardized formula across the board. Families may not feel that it's the same across the board when they're talking to friends and colleagues and neighbors, but colleges do look at the same formula to treat all families equally. As I mentioned before, few students receive the maximum amount they're eligible for. There are a handful of schools across the country, many of your elite Ivy League schools, schools like MIT, places like that, that are able to say up front to families, if you're accepted, we will meet your full financial need. That does not happen in most cases. So families do need to be prepared for what will happen if they have a bigger gap than just having to come up with their EFC. And again, for those of you who are just logging in now, if you have a question, feel free to type that into the chat feature. I will stop periodically as we go through to answer questions. So here is an example of a financial aid award. What families will see between different financial aid awards can often be confusing if the awards are not consistent from school to school. So they may get one award that is a letter with a nice laid out financial aid award with their cost of attendance, such as the one we're looking at on the screen. But some families may need to log into a web portal to get that award. They may have multiple different documents where the cost of attendance is listed one place and financial aid is listed in another. I've seen all different scenarios, and it can be confusing for a family when they're looking at all these documentation and trying to match up award letters and compare them. So again, I'll show you a great calculator where they can see side by side how their award letters compare and sort of take away all that extra verbiage and noise with all the documents that they have in front of them. So the first thing that families will see on an award letter is going to be the free money. Colleges want to put that right up front. They'll show the merit-based scholarship or grant, if there is one. If there is a need-based scholarship or grant from the college, that will be there as well. So they are typically listed on separate line items. So it's important for families to know which one is based on their financial need and which one is the merit scholarship where students need to maintain a certain GPA. Then you will also see if you're eligible, if a family is eligible for federal and or state grants or scholarships, they will see those listed there as well. Another line item that could show up on a financial aid award is the federal work study program. Not every college is going to give the student work study. It really depends on their eligibility based on their financial need, as well as the school's resources in granting that work study program. So some families will see a work study award from one college and then they won't see a work study award from another college, and they're confused. Why am I not getting work study at both schools? And typically it could be as simple as the school that provided the work study costs more, so the family had a higher eligibility and they were able to grant them that work study award. When students are granted work study, they need to find out from the college how do they apply for that work study job. It's not handed over to them. They do have to apply for different jobs on campus. Once a student deposits at a school, the college will tell them what their policy is in providing work study jobs. So perhaps they may have a college fair on campus in the fall. They may have an online listing of work study jobs, but it is dependent on the student to go out and get that work study job. The nice thing about work study is that any income that's earned is deducted from the student's income in the following year for financial aid purposes. Then you will see on an award letter, typically most colleges will award a family a federal direct loan. It may come in the form of a subsidized and an unsubsidized version. So what that means is that if a family has financial eligibility and they meet the need requirements to receive that subsidy, they could receive up to $3,500 a year for their freshman year in a subsidized federal direct loan. This is what we used to call the Stafford loan. So what that means is that the federal government is picking up the tab for the interest while the student's in school, and they don't have to start paying interest until they graduate. And of course they can defer payments on all of these federal student loans. The unsubsidized version of the federal direct loan can be anywhere from $2,000 to the full $5,500 if the family does not qualify for the subsidy as a freshman. I'll go over the rates in terms of the federal direct loan in a minute, but just wanted you to see how families will see loans on their award. If a school has federal Perkins Loan monies to deliver to families, they may also see a federal Perkins Loan on there. That is also a subsidized loan. So families will have to accept or decline all or part of the award letter when they deposit at a college. Of course, we always are advising families, take the free money, say yes, 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 accept the free money. If the student wants to work, then you can accept that work study. It's a great way for them to help pay for their miscellaneous expenses. And what I'm seeing, a lot of families really taking a look at those student loans and deciding, do we want the student to borrow? Many times at MEFA, we will tell the families, if you're eligible for the federal direct student loan, especially the subsidized version, you want to exhaust your federal student loan options first before your family does any other borrowing. So by May 1st, they have to deposit at a college and accept or decline all or part of their financial aid award. So you can see on this version of the award, they just have to circle yes or no. What many families are seeing as well on financial aid awards that really confuses them is when colleges package a federal Parent Plus loan. So I'll get into the Federal Plus loan in a little bit, talk more about the terms and the rates. But this is a federal program for families to use, parents, to pay for college. It is a credit-based loan. It is not financial aid. So when colleges package a large Federal Plus loan in a financial aid award, it may make that bottom line of what's due a lot smaller. So for this example on the award we're looking at, if a college were to package a Federal Plus loan for $30,000, let's say, it would look as if the family only owes $4,100. We want to make sure that families understand they can pay their balance due however they like. It's their decision, and we are there to help support them and let them know about all their different options. The Plus loan could be an option that they choose to pay the bill, but it's not required to use the Plus loan if a family is seeing that in a financial aid award. They should just take that Plus loan right out of the award and recalculate their balance due, and then decide how they're going to pay whatever is left over. So I'm going to take just a minute to answer a couple of questions. So the first question is, where can the family see the actual EFC? The EFC on the student aid report is only a number, not a dollar amount. So that number is the actual EFC. It's not shown as a dollar amount, but that is the family contribution for the FAFSA. Now remember, if a family has applied to any other private colleges that require the profile, that college is calculating a separate family contribution to determine their own institutional aid eligibility. Families can always talk to the financial aid office to find out what their EFC is on the institutional side and what it is on the federal side if they're not sure. Colleges can easily tell the families that number if they're confused. Okay, so I have another question, but I'm going to hold off on that one for just a minute. So I mentioned gift aid. That's the free money that all the families are hoping for and what they consider financial aid. Grants, scholarships, and tuition waivers are all forms of gift aid. From the federal government, they may receive, if they have financial aid eligibility, a federal Pell Grant, an SEOG grant or Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant may also show up for families who have a high financial need. Some of the state programs that families could see on an award letter or may be eligible for is, number one, the Mass Grant. That's the biggest grant program from the Commonwealth. Families do have to be eligible for the Pell Grant in order to receive the Mass Grant. Another state grant, which is actually a merit-based grant or scholarship, is the John and Abigail Adams Scholarship. That is an award that is given to students based on their MCAS scores. They need to be in the top 25th percentile of their district to receive that scholarship. That scholarship enables families and students to receive free tuition at any of our public colleges and universities. So it doesn't cover the fees or room and board, but it does cover tuition. If you want more information about all the different financial aid options that are available for Mass families and the criteria for them, you can go to osfa.mass.edu, which is the website listed here, to see all of the state grants and scholarships that families may or may not be eligible for. Colleges and universities are also a big supplier of grants and scholarships. In many cases, families may see the most grant and scholarship aid from the college itself. As I mentioned before, it could be based on merit and or financial need. But again, all of these awards are free monies that the family should accept as long as they are aware of their criteria to maintain those scholarships and grants, such as maintaining a minimum GPA. And again, for those of you who are just signing on, feel free to send any questions through the chat feature, and I'll be stopping periodically to go over those. So as I mentioned before, work study is based on a student's financial aid eligibility, so they do need to have financial need to qualify. Colleges award the different funding levels for students. It may or may not be awarded at every college. There could be different criteria based on the college's cost and the family's need at that particular school to determine whether they will get that work-study program. Work-study is not deducted from the bill. Students do work a certain amount of hours, maybe 10 hours a week, and they receive a paycheck every couple of weeks. That is how they receive their work-study funds. It's not sent to the college and deducted from their bill. So students can use this money to help pay for those indirect expenses. They could save their work-study funds to pay for the next semester's books, but it is to help pay for the indirect costs, not the direct costs. So as I mentioned before, students want to find out from the college or university that they're going to be attending how they can apply for work-study funds and work-study jobs. Some colleges have certain jobs that are available for freshmen, and all freshmen have to work in the cafeteria, for example. And then as they go on in their education at that college, they can apply for other jobs on campus, let's say in the financial aid office, for example. It's a great way for students to develop time management skills, make a little bit of money so they don't have to call home to mom and dad every week looking for cash. And it also, in many cases, helps them with their professional development opportunities on campus. So they're learning real-life skills at many of the jobs that they can get on campus. Some colleges offer work-study jobs off campus. So they could offer tutoring programs. The student could be a tutor at the local high school, for example, and that could be the work-study job that they receive. Students may also work part-time on campus if they don't have work-study. They can look into those job opportunities either at the college or in and around the college. So there's usually opportunities for most students to work if they want to. They just have to go out there and do their research and take it upon themselves to get that job. So a little bit of information, a little bit more detail on that federal direct student loan. As I mentioned earlier, $5,500 is the maximum that a freshman can receive. It goes up every year, so they can receive up to $6,500 sophomore year and up to $7,500 junior and senior year. The student is the borrower on this loan, so they don't need a cosigner, which is nice for a student to help pay and make a contribution towards the bill. They don't need mom or dad on the loan note. The rate is fixed and it does change annually. So right now for students that are in college and borrowing for this academic year, the interest rate is 4.66% fixed. So each loan that the student receives will have a fixed interest rate each year. It's reset every year on July 1st by the federal government, and it's tied to the 10-month T-bill. So realistically, a student could graduate in 4 years with 4 separate loans with 4 different interest rates. The interest rate on each loan will not change for the life of that loan, however. The loan could be divided up into 2 types, subsidized and unsubsidized. Payments on both of these programs can be deferred. If they do have a subsidized loan, they're not accruing any interest while the student is in school. The unsubsidized loan is accruing interest. As I mentioned, it could be anywhere from $2,000 to $5,500 for a freshman if they don't qualify for that subsidy. And they can defer payments on the unsubsidized loan as well. We get the question a lot about whether families should pay the interest while the student's in school. And of course, if they can afford to do that, we encourage families pay that interest while the student's in school to keep that debt down, so when the student graduates, they only have the initial amount that they borrowed, not the interest that is accrued. When students are filling out their master promissory note, they do have the option to receive a bill for the interest. It's a voluntary payment. They can make it or not. It's really up to the student to decide, but we encourage students to get that bill. If you can make those payments, go ahead and do that. There is an origination fee deducted from the loan of 1.073%. So families will need to know the full $5,500 for that freshman year loan is not all going to the college to credit towards the bill. That 1.073% fee will be deducted from the loan, which is about $56 for a freshman. So their bill could be short $56 if they don't account for that origination fee being deducted from the loan. Once the student deposits at a college, the financial aid office will be in touch with them about completing their master promissory note and going through entrance counseling, which is a requirement of federal student loan borrowers. They do need to go through this counseling to make sure that They really understand their rights and responsibilities as a student loan borrower. And again, no payments are due while they're in school, but they can make voluntary payments at any time. Another nice feature of the federal direct student loans, in addition to the low interest rates and the fact that the student can borrow on their own, another great feature are the repayment options. So the standard repayment for a direct student loan is going to be 10 years. However, if the student can't afford to make that 10-year payment, if it's too high, they can apply for other repayment options, such as graduated repayment or extended repayment. They can also consolidate their federal student loans when they graduate. So there are lots of flexible options for these federal direct student loans, which is why we recommend that families exhaust their federal student loan options first before doing any other borrowing. The Massachusetts No Interest Loan, or the NIL loan, is another loan that some colleges may participate in. There's 70 institutions in Massachusetts that participate. It is based on financial need. The student must be a permanent legal resident of Massachusetts for at least 1 year to qualify. They must be attending full-time in a certificate or degree granting program. They also must be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident, and as I mentioned, have high financial need. The minimum loan amount for this program is $1,000, and the maximum is $4,000 per academic year. The aggregate borrowing limit for this loan is $20,000, and they will be paying that out over 10 years after they graduate. Now, this loan is subsidized while the student's in school, so no interest is accruing, as well as when they graduate. So that's a really nice feature. Again, if you have questions, feel free to type those into the chat feature, and I'll stop periodically as we're going. Some schools also participate in the federal Perkins Loan. Not all colleges have a funding pool of Perkins money. Some do, so families may see a Perkins Loan on their award letter. It is based on financial need, so they do have to have financial eligibility and need to receive this loan. It is subsidized as well, so there's no interest accruing while they're in school. There's also no fees, which is nice. And the interest rate when they graduate is 5.5% fixed. Colleges will decide how much a student is eligible for on the Perkins Loan. And as I mentioned before, not all colleges are participating in this program because they don't all have funding levels available. The Federal Direct Parent Plus Loan, I mentioned a little bit about that earlier. Again, this is not financial aid. So if you see this loan in a financial aid award letter, advise the family to deduct that from the award so that they can get a true balance due at that college. And then they can decide how they want to pay that amount. The parent does need to apply and be approved. It is a credit-based loan. And the parent or custodial step-parent is the sole borrower. So grandma or grandpa can't help out the student by borrowing a plus loan for them. It does have to be a parent. Student is not on this loan. The current interest rate is 7.21% fixed for this current academic year. Again, that's due to change on July 1st, and we should know the federal rates usually early in June are when those are announced. Repayment of the PLUS loan is going to begin typically in the spring semester after the loan is fully dispersed. Once families go into repayment, they can request loan deferment if they need to. Interest is accruing on this loan while the student's in school and into repayment, so it is important for families, if they want to make interest payments, if they choose to defer, to go ahead and do that. All those payments would be voluntary if they're deferring the loan, but would reduce the overall cost of the loan. Verification is a process that many families are going through right now. As financial aid offices have given them their financial aid awards and they're doing their awarding, they may need to verify certain pieces of information on their FAFSA form, maybe on their profile form. Some students are also selected by the Department of Education for verification, so they will notify the college to request additional documentation from the family to verify whatever piece of information they're looking for. Some of the items that a family may need to submit could be tax transcripts, business statements, account statements. There is an opportunity for families after they've done their taxes about 3 weeks later to use the IRS data retrieval tool to update their FAFSA form if they had to estimate their information when they initially submitted it. Our advice to families when going through this verification process is to respond quickly to the colleges, get them what they need, make sure they've received it, because until they've done their part to verify the information, that financial aid award is not final, and they won't be able to receive those financial aid funds until the verification process is complete. Okay, I'm just going to stop real quick and see if anybody has any questions. Okay, hold on one sec. We're going to take a look at the questions here. Okay, I don't see any questions just yet, so we'll keep going. So after families have looked at their financial aid awards and they have done their comparisons, they then want to find out what they owe the college. So it might seem like a simple number to come up with, what is their balance due, but it can be a little bit confusing when you're looking at direct charges and indirect charges. All of those pieces are part of the full cost of attendance, and that can confuse families from time to time. So MEFA has created this great college cost calculator. I just used it last weekend with my niece, who's a high school senior, and it was really, really helpful. So I'm going to go on the MEFA site to demo this for you. And again, this calculator is only going to show the family, have them calculate their direct costs. So their indirect expenses, such as books, supplies, miscellaneous expenses, transportation, they can use their financial aid funds to help pay for those expenses. They can even use loan funds if they need to. I always try to tell families to try and get by using savings or cash to help pay for those indirect costs to try and keep their debt down. So with this calculator, I'm going to just show you a quick demo here. It allows families to line up their award letters side by side, up to 4. So I'll put in just some round numbers here to show you the example. So let's say this college A is a private college. We have $35,000 tuition, $1,800 in fees, The room and the meal plan, let's say it's about $14,000. And then health insurance. Putting in 0 for health insurance. Families need to understand that health insurance is charged by the colleges here in Massachusetts unless families waive that fee by providing documentation that the student is already insured under their own health plan. This is really important for families to be aware of and make sure they waive that fee if they do have the student insured under their own plan, because it could be a $2,000 expense that they don't need to pay for. So I'm going to put in 0 in this calculator. Then I'll put in some of our free monies, our federal, state, and institutional grants and scholarships. So you can see, if we scroll down a little bit, the total direct cost for this school is $50,800. That's a high amount. It's a high sticker price. Families may be overwhelmed with that number. So we really want them to go through this exercise to find out how much they actually owe. If they have any outside private scholarships or grants, they can put those in here as well. Okay. So I have College A. You can see the total direct costs are $50,800. But when you deduct the financial aid and the student loans, it's really the remaining costs that they owe the college for the whole year is $21,400. Still a high number for a lot of families, but a much better number than looking at just that cost of attendance. And then if we were to add in another college, let's say this is a public college, so we see the tuition is a much lower, fees are higher. So I'm putting in our federal Pell Grant, our state grants and scholarships. So they do have a $900 grant or scholarship from the state. Let's say it's a Mass grant. But I'm going to add in that John and Abigail Adams scholarship as well. So that would really be $1,800 plus $900. And then we'll put in our student loans. And then we have a really great side-by-side comparison of these two very different schools. Very different top-line costs, but the remaining balance after we deduct all the student aid is not too far off from one another. So it's really important when families are going through their award letters to line them up in a similar fashion so they can get a true picture of what each college is giving them. How much free money is the college giving the student? That's one number to look at. How much is the college expecting the student to borrow? That's another number. The cost of attendance is important, but the balance due is really the critical number for families to zero in on, because that's what they actually have to pay. So I have a quick question I just want to answer here. Families do need to accept an award and deposit at a school by May 1st, but they won't know the federal plus interest rate until July 1st. How much do those rates change from year to year? It really is hard to tell. You can calculate that plus rate by looking at the current T-bill and adding in the certain percentage that the federal government will add in to determine the rate. But again, that can change. So families really don't need to apply for their loans until the summer. But some families want to know now, will I be approved? Because they may need to borrow a loan for their family, for their student to go to college. If this is the case, they can always apply for other types of loan options. The MEFA loan is open right now for the next academic year, so that's one option. The PLUS loan is not their only way to pay the college bill. So I'm going to go through a few other options that they can look at, particularly early on in the process if they're not able to apply for the PLUS loan just yet because they don't know what their rate will be. They can apply, but they won't know what the rate is till July 1st or early June, so they may want to look at other options as well. So when we're trying to figure out how we're going to pay that balance due, here's what we tell families to do to create a strategy. Let's say the family owes $20,000. First thing they want to look at is their past income. Has the student been able to save? Does the family have a college savings plan, maybe a 529 plan? Has grandma or grandpa saved? Are they having a big cookout for the graduation party where they may get some money from aunts and uncles that they can put towards that bill? In this example, the student's putting in $1,000, parents putting in $4,000 a year. They've saved $16,000. They're going to divide it up equally. So they just shave $5,000 off that bill. Then they're going to look at present income, so their current wages, their monthly income. How much can they absorb to put towards an interest-free payment plan? That's the next step that they want to explore. With this example, the family is putting towards the bill $500 a month over 10 months for a $5,000 payment plan. So right there, using savings, past income, and present income, we've cut that balance due in half before we need to borrow. So this family does need to borrow. They can't swing the full amount with just savings or a payment plan. They can't afford that high of a payment, but they can afford approximately $600 a month for the payment plan and loan combination. As I mentioned, savings is a great vehicle. If families have saved, they want to explore all their options for utilizing their savings. If they do have a 529 plan, for example, or U-Plan or U-Fund through MEFA, they can give us a call and we can help them decide how to use those funds. With the U-Fund program, we do have that managed by Fidelity Investments, so we would defer to them to provide financial advice on their investments. But this is the first place that families want to look towards to pay that bill. Then, as I mentioned, there's this interest-free monthly payment plan. Pretty much every college has one, and the families can pay from a period of 5 to 12 months depending on the school and depending on their program. There's a small enrollment fee, usually $50 or so. And again, this isn't a loan. There's no credit requirements or interest charges. It's a great way to help keep that debt down. Once the students deposit, they should get information from the college about the payment plan, but they can also find that information on the school's website. If the family were to start the payment plan, let's say in June, but it's a 10-month plan that starts in May, they can always make that June and May payment to get started on the 10-month plan. So they can make a back payment. Or some colleges will allow them to turn that 10-month plan into a 9-month plan that starts in June. Then we look at private loans, educational loans. Before families borrow, they do want to consider a lot of things regarding their credit history and their finances before they take on any additional debt. So as I mentioned, the PLUS loan is credit-based, MEFA loans are credit-based. Virtually all loans above and beyond the federal student loans are going to be credit-based, so they need to understand their credit history. Only borrowing what they need, of course. And although this process is a yearly process, they do want to think ahead 4 years from now. If I need to borrow every year, what's that payment going to be at the end of 4 years? So the $100 a month payment for freshman year might not seem so difficult, but they're probably going to have to borrow for sophomore, junior, and senior year as well. So they want to make sure that they can afford those payments too before taking on debt. If the family and the parents are expecting the student to help pay for those parent or private loans that they're co-signing, they do want to consider the student's post-graduation plans and what they can absorb as a monthly payment. Take into account that they will probably have their federal student loans, which is about $300 a month if they borrow the full $27,000. This is where families can get themselves into trouble at this time of year, where they may deposit at a school that maybe they can't afford and they end up taking on too much debt. And that's not a situation we want to see families in. There's a college for everyone, and we want to try and help them create a sound financial plan to get through this process. In addition to considering what to borrow and how much, they want to understand the actual loans themselves. I'll be conducting a Comparing Loan Options webinar in June for families. You're all feel free to join us, where we go through the nuts and bolts of loans, literally getting into the disclosure statements and comparing them between different loan programs. They want to understand, is the interest rate fixed or is it variable? How long do I have to pay that loan off? Am I the primary borrower? Is the student the primary borrower? Who's on that loan? With a repayment timeline of 10 years to 15 years, or if a family defers the loan, the further you push out those payments, the more costly that loan is going to be if they're not making principal and interest payments while the student's in school. So those are things that families need to consider before they decide to defer their payments, for example. Are they interested in a fixed rate where they have stable, predictable payments? Or do they want to take maybe advantage of a variable interest rate that might be low currently? They do need to keep in mind, if they're looking at variable interest rates, that those rates can go up. And with some lenders, there may not be a cap, or the cap may be very high, as high as 25%. So they really want to think about these things before they borrow. Many lenders, MEFA doesn't do this, but other lenders do offer tiered pricing based on families' credit scores, where their low advertised rate may be for a very small percentage of families that have the very best credit. So families won't know what their interest rate is until they actually apply. So that's something that families want to consider before applying for educational loans. They want to look for transparency, look for all the information up front so that they know what they're getting themselves into before they even apply for that loan. So I have a quick question about the maximum that a parent can borrow or a family can borrow in a single year. With most, I can only speak for the MEFA loans and the PLUS loans, for example. With the PLUS loan and the MEFA loan, a parent or a family can borrow up to the full cost of attendance minus their financial aid award. Some other loans may have caps on what you can borrow. With the PLUS loan and the MEFA, there's no cap, other than they can't borrow more than what the cost of the school is minus financial aid. So that's a great question. Here is our loan payment calculator. I'll show this to you real quick on our new MEFA.org. This is a really easy way for families to put in what they owe, what's that balance due, to create a financial plan before they deposit, so they have an idea of what options are available for them through their local state authority. So I'm going to put in the family owes $20,000. Let's say that's what they're looking at borrowing. And the student's a freshman, so we have 4 years before graduation. And this is an excellent site to look at because it provides the family everything they need to know about that loan before they even apply. They won't be able to get this information from all lenders up front on their website, such as this one. So this is a really great way for families to look at loan options and find out how much am I going to pay per month under each different payment option. What's the interest rate? What's the APR? What's the total cost of the loan that the family is going to absorb if they take on that $20,000 debt? These are important numbers for families to calculate no matter what type of plan they're looking at borrowing, so that they really understand what they're getting themselves into and they're able to handle the 4 years of payments versus just the payments for the freshman year. Okay, I have another couple of questions, but I'm going to hold off just a minute on those. So here's a comparison of the MEFA loan and the PLUS loan. We get requests and questions about this all the time. So we put that out there so families understand what the differences are. So here you can see the MEFA loan for undergraduate students starts at 5.49% fixed. These are our current rates. The Federal Direct Plus loan, the current fixed rate is 7.21%. You do need to file the FAFSA to receive the Federal Plus loan. MEFA encourages families to file the FAFSA to see what they may be eligible for federal, state, and institutional aid, but it is not required to borrow a MEFA loan. The PLUS loan can be used anywhere in the country, any college, and for Mass residents, they can also use this loan anywhere in the country, any college. If we have families who are out-of-state residents attending college in Massachusetts, they can also take advantage of the MEFA loan. The Federal PLUS loan does not require the student on the loan. The student is not on this loan, and it can only be borrowed by the parent or custodial step-parent. Repayment is beginning in the spring semester after the loan is fully dispersed, and again, they can defer payments on that PLUS loan. With the MEFA loan, it's more of a family loan where the student and the parent or any creditworthy co-borrowers share responsibility for that loan. So everybody is on the loan note. And as you saw in the previous loan calculator, there are multiple different repayment options for families to choose from. And it is also credit-based. So just as we start to wrap up a little bit about timing and paying your bill, the fall semester bills will be sent in late June, early July, and will be due approximately 3 weeks later in late July, early August. Again, these bills are for the direct costs only, so the tuition fees and room and board if the student's living on campus. If the family has not waived their health insurance costs, that will also be on the bill. Their enrollment deposit that they need to pay by May 1st, their financial aid, and any outside scholarships that they have reported to the financial aid office will also be deducted from the bill. Remember, work study is not deducted from the bill. It is money that is used for those indirect expenses. Although with the MEFA loan, for example, you can get an instant credit decision and do all your paperwork online in one day, we do tell families not to wait till the last minute to apply for any private loans or any supplemental loans. We give a guideline of about 2 weeks before the bill is due. But again, it is a credit-based loan. It's an instant credit decision. So they can get a very quick decision. They also want to set up their payment plans according to the college's schedule. Really, as soon as they know that they're going to a particular college, they can apply for a payment plan. So they can set that up early, and when they get their bill, they can always adjust the amounts later on. Same holds true for their private loans. If they were to apply for a MEFA loan, for example, today, and they get their bill and realize they don't need that full amount, they can always call us to reduce that loan amount. We're always encouraging the financial aid office as a resource for families. Students, we want them to connect with their financial aid counselor. We want parents to develop that relationship with the financial aid office, and so that they can really ask questions when they need to and understand their full financial aid award, ask questions about how it was determined. They can ask the financial aid office about the renewability criteria. All of this information should be on the financial aid website. Any merit scholarships that the student receives, the families can talk to the admissions office about those scholarships as well. They do want to understand how the college is going to treat any outside private scholarships. So if the student receives a local scholarship, the financial aid office is going to apply that to their financial aid award. All outside scholarships need to be reported to financial aid. So the family needs to know, is the college going to apply that scholarship and take away some of their own grantor scholarships, some of the institutional aid? Will they reduce the loan amount? Or maybe they'll apply it to any gaps in the award letter. Different colleges have different policies, so the families want to understand how those scholarships are treated. If they have special circumstances, if they need to appeal their award, if something big has changed in their financial picture, maybe somebody's lost a job, they do want to talk to the financial aid office and work closely with them to make it so that they can make any adjustments if they're able to with the financial aid award based on this new set of circumstances. We are encouraging families to go to as many open house programs as they can to the colleges the student was accepted at, so that they can really get a nice, good picture and be refreshed of what that college has to offer before they make that May 1 decision. There's great information on the college websites, and at some of these open house programs you may be able to make an appointment with financial aid, or the families can do a meeting over the phone if they're not able to meet with them in person. But typically there'll be some sort of financial aid session at every open house program. So what's next? What happens for families after they go to their open house programs and they review their award letters? They do need to deposit by May 1st. They do want to know if the student is waitlisted, what their decision will be for that May 1st deadline. We tell families deposit at one of the schools that the student was accepted at and not to count on getting off the wait list at another school. Even if the student does get on the wait list, let's say in June, they may not get as much financial aid as they need to pay for that school. So they want to deposit at, let's say, their second choice school if they're counting on that wait list, and then they can decide as a family from there whether or not that's a good decision for them. They will lose the enrollment deposit if they decide to go to a different college where they got off the wait list. So they should be thinking about these payment strategies now. MEFA is all over the Commonwealth the next couple of weeks doing Paying the College Bills seminars. I was at Shrewsbury High School on Monday night. We have folks all over the place this week, next week, and the week after. And families can bring their financial aid awards with them to these seminars to get help evaluating them. They can always call us to get help. They can email us. And we do have webinars providing the same paying the college bill information on our website. We have a recorded webinar, and we have a couple of live webinars coming up as well. So we have lots of great resources and internal expertise and human resources and experts here to help families through this process. So that's wrapping it up for the formal part of the presentation. I'm going to answer a couple more questions. If you have a question, feel free to type that into the chat feature so we can answer those for you. If you need to reach me after the webinar, my email is right here, swells@mefa.org, and my direct phone line is right here as well. Again, you can get your evidence of learning form right off the counselor section of the MEFA website if you wanted to earn a PDP point for this webinar. So for those of you who may need to jump off, I know we've gone our full hour, so I'm going to stay on for a little bit longer and answer questions. But if you do need to leave, I want to thank everybody for coming, and have a great week and have a great weekend. So the question that I just got was about the MEFA services, whether it be the calculator or the loan programs. All of MEFA's services are free of charge, so any family anywhere across the country can go on our website and use our calculators. Our website is open to the public, so you don't need to be a Mass resident to take advantage of even our webinars. They can go on and view some of our recorded webinars. All of that educational information on our website is free of charge, and anybody can take advantage of it. For the MEFA loan in particular, they do need to have that Massachusetts connection. So if a family is from out of state, they need to be sending their child to school in Massachusetts in order to get that financial aid from the MEFA loan. So I'm going to leave things open for just another minute while folks type in their chat questions, and we'll continue to answer those. Okay, folks, I'm not seeing any other questions coming in. So I'll give it another couple of seconds. If you have a question, please enter those in the chat feature and type them in, and I will answer them for the entire audience. I do want to remind everybody that I did record this webinar, so if you have colleagues that were not able to join us, we will be posting it on the MEFA website. So you can go ahead and forward that information to your colleagues that might want to take advantage of this information as well. Okay, I don't see any other questions coming in, so I'm going to end the webinar now. Oh, one more question. Hold on one second. Okay, great. So I will end the webinar now. I want to thank everybody for coming. I hope it was useful, and don't forget to cash in those PDPs and fill out those evidence of learning forms.